Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, no changes can be made without the account holder. I made an entitled customer wait for hours after they complain about slow service. Hire the Romanian. Are you sure? Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. No changes can be made without the account holder. Malicious complaints thought this belonged here, and a power-tripping mod over there decided to remove the original post after breaking his own commenting rules and getting called out. A recent story reminded me of this act of malicious compliance by a family member. This family member's spouse passed was involved in an accident that left them critically injured. They were in ICU for months and would face permanent disability upon returning home. They didn't want to leave their home. It was close to the best hospital in the region, and it was their forever home, so plans began to renovate it for accessibility. In addition to the renovations, a wheelchair van was going to be needed along with other medical equipment for home use. As she worked on all of this, it was clear that large expenditures were going to be needed, and it was going to take time to draw money out of long-term savings and retirement accounts. So she called the credit card companies to get their limit increased. Sadly, before the renovations were complete, her spouse passed away after almost 6 months of hospitalization and therapy. Now attention turned to final arrangements. The couple had always been very frugal and maintained nearly perfect credit. All cards were being paid on time, and despite carrying a balance on some cards from the construction, demolition had already started, so renovations had to continue, but at a slower pace. Money was now coming in from those long-term savings. The problem is one major credit card company refused to work with her. She tried to access the account and was told, "Sorry, I have to speak the account holder." She explained that her spouse had passed away and she was wanting to pay what was left on the card. She also explained that she was an account holder. Evil Bank stated that she was not on the account, she was a mere card holder, and she had no rights to the account. The person on the phone explained that her husband opened the account without her and just gave her the card. She just didn't understand how credit cards worked. This was a lie. The couple had always been joint account holders on everything since they were first married for exactly this reason. They had done extensive estate planning and made sure that all their assets were protected in trusts should the worst occur. They knew their kids would be cared for and their partner would be able to access everything. Also, she ran the couple's business for over a decade, navigating a sea of regulations, insurance company billing, and payroll/finances/taxes. Needless to say, she did not enjoy being condescended to. Unfortunately, Evil Bank would not budge. They would not allow any access to the account for any reason, but for some reason they didn't cancel the card after finding out the sole account holder had passed away. This back and forth went on for weeks with multiple calls to the Evil Bank and trying to escalate the issue to supervisors to address the state of the account. In a final attempt to show Evil Bank that they were hurting themselves by this. "So I'm unable to access any part of the account, even to make a payment?" Evil Bank, that's right. So the account is going to be closed? Evil Bank, no, only the account holder can do that. Even though the account holder is dead? Evil Bank, only the account holder, ma'am. So what does that mean for card holders and being able to charge on the account? Evil Bank, only the account holder can deactivate a card or modify the account. So what happens if a card holder uses their card? Evil Bank, they can continue to use the card until the account holder tells us otherwise. The deceased account holder. Evil Bank, yes. I can't help you with anything else. You need to put the account holder on the phone if you want to change anything or make a payment. No, that's fine. She broke down crying immediately after, but decided that they set the rules, so she would play by them. All the final expenses, medical bills, and as much construction cost as possible was put onto that credit card. She maxed it out and then let it sit until the credit card company started calling for payment. "I'm sorry, per your policy, I'm just the card holder and I'm not responsible for any balance." "Ma'am, this balance needs to be paid or it will affect your credit." "It better not, I'm not on the account." "This is an illegal collections call, and I will be reporting it to the FTC and the attorneys general in your home state and mine. I still have his number on speed dial. You can make your case to the court." She was used to getting medical insurance companies to pay claims for the last decade or so. You didn't want to play hardball with her. Remember how all the assets were in trusts? On paper, her partner had no assets to place a lien on. All the cash in the joint checking account had been used to pay expenses for the last several months, and withdrawals from long-term savings were sent to her account, not the joint account. They had agreed to move all exposed assets shortly after her partner regained consciousness, fearing the worst. Plus, all the income from the business had been brought home in her name for more than a decade, so she would actually get some kind of social security payment when she got older. So not only did his estate have no assets to go after, he didn't have an income for the last decade. Evil Bank was left with a maxed-out credit card and no assets in the estate they could file against for payment. The handful of other credit cards companies worked with her to raise limits temporarily or remove daily spending caps for large expenditures, and they were all paid without a single missed, late, or partial payment. Evil Bank had to eat a 5-figure loss all because they decided that the wife didn't deserve to be on the account from day one. She had every intention to pay every bill and expense. She has never been one to try to scam or cheat someone. She gave Evil Bank every chance to accept money for the bill. They repeatedly refused to acknowledge her as a spouse or executor, but she sure liked the irony of the only company that refused to acknowledge the death of her spouse ended up paying for the funeral expenses. I made an entitled customer wait for hours after they complain about slow service. This happened last summer. After watching r/videos all night, I was reminded of this and thought some people might get a kick out of this. I am a waiter at one of the nicest restaurants in my hometown. I am pretty personable and always end up striking friendly conversations with my tables. I have 1.5 million stories about people who were seemingly very friendly, but ended up stiffing me on my tips, but this is r/malicious compliance, so I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't be a dick to your server until after you receive your food. It's a beautiful day, and the restaurant is on the water. Every nice day is absolutely packed. My restaurant does not take reservations of any kind ever, so people have to go in person, request a table, leave, then come back later to eat. Normally locals understand and expect this, there is no problem, but we are a tourist town. When newcomers try to get tables, there is always trouble. This is important in a second. Now I am swamped. I have had my section full for the entire day, and hadn't had time to go on a single 5-minute break since the start of my double shift at 10 a.m, it's now around 6 p.m. A couple lands at one of my tables in the corner, and they are already upset because they had to wait to get a table after a new girl had tried to take a reservation for them over the phone, and they had to be called back and told that they had to come in to reserve a spot. I nod to them, acknowledging that I see them after I notice them glaring daggers at me as if to say, get your butt over here now. I was dealing with a particularly shitty table at the time. Any server reading this will know the type. Every freaking time you come back they need something else. They ask for ketchup, you bring ketchup, then once you're back, they ask for refills on drinks, you run and do that, and then they need salt, and they want to order more food, blah blah blah. Now at this point, there are two things you need to understand. 1, they had sat around waiting for a table for over an hour before being sat, and 2, our restaurant has food runners. For those of you who are not familiar with this, it is a group of high school kids that, for around 6% of all tips the restaurant receives, will take care of running your food to your table for you. Now I was also the only person that treated the food runners like human beings instead of pack mules. Because of this, my food runners were very well organized and would happily help me out when I was swamped. A food runner had gone to my table, offered them water, brought them silverware, and told them I would be over shortly. 5 minutes later, I roll up and start my speech. Hello, my name is Gray, and welcome to the restaurant. Sorry for that wait, as you can tell I'm really busy and... The man cuts me off. What's your name? He asks condescendingly. Gray, I reply. Gray, he starts up again. Why is this the first time you are coming to the table? We have been here waiting for over 45 minutes. They had literally gotten there no more than 8 minutes ago, and thought I hadn't noticed them walk in. You are by far the worst waiter I have ever seen. You should have greeted us and walked us to our table. Another lie, as I saw the hostess do this like she does for every other person that eats here. Now I was already having a bad day, and I was on my second part of a double shift that I knew would go well past midnight, so I was having none of it. This guy goes on to insult my posture, my accent, my clothing, I'm wearing a fucking uniform, and a myriad of other things. At this point, I'm staring straight through him, not listening to a single word. Finally, he says, we want another server now. You should be fired for your incompetence. I smile. He would not have asked for that. He basically just gave me the green light to fuck up the rest of his evening. I'm friends with everyone in the restaurant. When I have a request, it can usually be handled almost instantly. But this time was going to be different. I walk to the hostess's table and see one of my best friends, let's call her Emma, crying under the counter. Emma is a 4'6" adorable Hispanic girl who is 20 years old. She was just a tiny little thing, and she needed a step stool to address people at the front desk. She had a cabinet that she could literally sit in and take naps, and she was in there crying. I gave her a big hug and asked her what was wrong. She said a couple had chewed her out for 10 minutes straight about how terrible she was, and guess who it was? My freaking table. I asked her if she wanted some revenge, and she said hell yes. I told her to take as long as she could, but apparently, I was not good enough, and they wanted a new table. She smiled, she knew what was going to happen. I told my water buddy John that Emma was going to send him a table in an hour or so, and went back to work. That couple watched 3 tables sit down, order their food, eat, pay, and leave before they even got to order. They sat and wanted the entire time just to try and stick it to me. The look on their faces as I happily and efficiently took care of all my tables right in front of them was priceless. Since they were not my table anymore, I didn't visit them once. After they were moved, ate, and left. I asked the waiter that took their table how they were. He said they were very polite and patient with him. I think that will be the last time they treat waitstaff so horribly. Hire the Romanian. Are you sure? First ever post, long time lurker. This was 5 years ago. The company I used to work for was a metalworks company in the southeast of England. It had a 40-strong team of fabricators and fitters. We were hiring for an electrical engineer for some automation that we were branching into. I was also the guy training the engineers in what system they would be using. Me equals me. Boss equals dipstick boss. European guy equals I'll call him Gav for short. Supervisor equals workshop supervisor. I got word from the supervisor that they had hired a guy and he was from Europe. They warned me to speak slowly and clearly as English wasn't his strong suit. I told the M to check his documents to check he can indeed work. I was told to keep my nose out and do my job. When I had spoken to boss, he had a thick folder of pictures of electrical systems that he had built for home automation. I was a bit skeptical at first, especially as some of the pictures had stock photo plastered over them. I asked him to make sure he was sure about this, and if he had done the checks to make sure he was allowed to work. I was told the same thing: keep your nose out of it, and do your job okay. A month or so goes by and I think he understands how the system works, and how it should be used with all of the safety systems in place, so we take him to a site, and leave him to do his thing, while the rest of the guys get started on fitting security grill and railing all over the site. Me being the sucker, I agreed to help the rest of the team with the fitting and finishing, leaving our new engineer all alone. Big mistake. All power on the site cuts out, generator kicks in, all the lights come on and we discover smoke coming from the room where the fuse board is. An oh fuck moment has just dawned on everyone. What Gav had decided to do was try and wire in the system to a 3-phase board without checking the board, standard phase board right next to it. First red flag. This made the situation worse as he somehow blew the entire board up, and had to explain to the electrician why he has to install a new board. The second red flag came in the shape of a van filled with immigration officers wanting to speak to Gav about him working when he shouldn't have been. I asked if they had any proof of it being the same guy, and indeed it was. I pulled the boss to one side and told him the immigration officers want to talk to Gav and the boss. I could see the terror in his face and panic in his voice as he said, call the new guy in so I can get rid of him fast. I politely reminded him that he should have checked before hiring him. He looked defeated. The immigration officers decide to wait around the corner, and just as Gav walked in, the van pulls in and swoop onto the poor man and slap him in cuffs. The officers then load him into the van and drive off. A few weeks pass by and the boss thinks he is in the clear. A few weeks later, and he has sent a letter telling him to make his way to the nearest home office building. To this day I still don't know what they said to him, as he came back 2 hours later and closed up the workshop and never reopened, but it turns out he is still paying off a massive fine and couldn't afford to reopen. He was later arrested for tax evasion and fraud. Gav and I became friends and the home office helped him become a British citizen with some help that they offered, so he wasn't removed. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.